to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we dig in deep to analyze the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. I'm Andy Nelson from thenextreel.com.
And I'm Pete Wright, also from The Next Reel.
We're looking at Jon Favreau's 2008 film Iron Man. Today we're looking at minute 74, which starts with Tony asking Obi if they're double dealing under the table, and ends with Tony adjusting his arm unit while watching the news.
Yeah.
This is really where we start seeing this turn for Obadiah Stane. It's interesting because you still could have this go two different ways. They still have this setup with Raza being the potential villain of the film, while Stane is kind of this business villain, almost like the B-level villain, right?
Yes.
And I think it's interesting the way that they're setting that up, because it works really nicely where you don't quite know what's happening. And Stane, actually, it makes me laugh because I wonder if the actors, even at this point in performing the scenes, if they knew if Obadiah was actually going to be the big villain of the film, or if he was still talking about being like the villain in the second film.
Well, that's why I've been anxious to hear your opinion on this turn, because this is the one, right? At, like 8 seconds into this minute or something, we get that fantastic push into Obadiah with his arm around Tony, and he says, "Tony, who do you think locked you out?" Right? Revealing now that, he's had something nefarious going on with Tony's activity in the company. He's trying to keep the company moving full steam ahead in spite of Tony's actions, and he's revealing himself as a big bad at the company. Given the uncertainty that we know about in how they were going to use Obadiah, how do you feel about this transition? Is this a good one for you? Does it feel right, earned, thought out?
I think it all works, because I it's one of those things where I think that they could have left Obadiah just being a businessman and had him make the turn in the second film, and you found out that there was all this under the table dealings this whole time. The fact that it happens here, I think is fine. I think it still works well in context of the film. I think it was a nice surprise, and Jeff Bridges is a great actor to be doing it.
Totally.
So I buy in. I think it works.
I do too. He's a menace. He is just a menacing everything. His look is menacing. Everything's great.
But what's so interesting is he actually says here, "It's the only way that I can protect you."
Yeah.
As if he's trying to protect Tony from himself. And I think that's actually a really interesting element here, because they're arms dealers, basically, right? They manufacture and sell weapons. And it's one of those companies where, as a corporation, you kind of have to acknowledge what you're doing, but step away from kind of thinking about what that really means, I think. And so I think that Tony obviously has been doing that his whole life until recently, and is now kind of changing his mind. Meanwhile, all of the business interests, and that's who Obadiah represents here, they are largely saying, "Hello, you're bankrupting us. You're going to, we like having our islands and our yachts and all of this sort of stuff, and we're not going to have anything left if you keep doing this." And Obadiah is representing all that. And so he's saying, I'm protecting you from yourself, meaning I don't want you to destroy this company. And it's an interesting element, because it also is this thing where he is kind of selling arms to terrorists.
I feel like that's true. I feel like there is a sense of surprise, of like a cascading sort of waterfall of surprises here. And the first one is that he believes, I think for the audience, that he believes so deeply that he's protecting Tony. I think that motivation is probably him lying to himself at this point, right? That he knows he's protecting himself, and he's saying he's protecting Tony so that he can try and salvage a little bit of the relationship, enough of his relationship with Tony to try to soften the blow, right? To try to keep Tony from blowing up and doing something stupid in the press, which is always what he's trying to do, is protect Tony from his PR, his own PR nightmare that follows him everywhere. But I don't think that, I think that he probably, you peel back one more layer of that. I think he knows he's doing this as a power grab, right? He's not doing this just because of his altruistic relationship with Tony.
No, right. I think a lot of that is is the sense that, Tony is falling apart, and this is his opportunity to kind of step in.
Right.
And I think a lot of that for me also works because of the fact that he puts his arm around him and he's like, picture time.
Yeah.
And does it in front of the press, putting Tony into a situation where he can't really react. And I think that was actually a really smart move for Obadiah and calculating move to put them in a place like that, so that Tony is in front of the spotlight and can't just jump in and do anything. I just thought it was a really smart and evil move on Obadiah's part.
Oh God, absolutely. And that again is what sort of telegraphs that he's not, this is not from an altruistic position. If it was altruistic, if it was defensible, he would have been able to do it in their private conversation up the stairs a little bit further. But he's protecting himself. You can almost tell, when you look at it again, as you pointed out yesterday, Christine is still over Tony's shoulder. Like he's now turned away from her, only to the photographers, and now is speaking, sotto voce to try to keep Tony quiet. And Tony's face is priceless. It is stone. It is shocked, right? The surprise is setting in that this guy that he thought was his father figure, his protector, that he had already bought into the fact that, so deeply that Obadiah was on his side. This betrayal is just beautifully communicated in his face.
It does make me wonder, though, as I watch all of this, with Christine right over their shoulder, it seems like she might still be close enough to have been hearing the entire conversation. It makes me wonder, was Obadiah concerned that he's saying all this with another member of the press so close?
I don't know. I'd sort of written it off that it was just too loud. But the thing that's funniest to me is she's a reporter, right? She's a dogged reporter. She's clearly got a great story. Obadiah leaves. Right, the camera pulls out. We've got this reverse shot on Tony's back, and we watch Obadiah put his scarf on and go get in his car. We cut back on Tony, and rather than kind of step down next to Tony and say, "Hey, what was that all about? I'm a reporter, I need to know." She just walks away. She goes back into the party and leaves. That is not the activity I would expect her to engage in next.
No. It's strange. All the other reporters, it seems like they have more interest, and she's all of a sudden does she feel sorry for him here?
I don't know.
It's
That's a good question.
It's an odd reaction. I'm just going to leave him to his thoughts.
Yeah, right. You know what? Maybe I think I'm tired of the game. I'm retiring. No, I think I'm going to be a teacher. That doesn't work for me, but it's a good moment for Tony when all the security people kind of run by him down to Obadiah, and he's just alone. Nobody cares about Tony in this scene. I find that weird.
I think it's fitting. I think that's the moment that he needed. I think it works nicely. The camera works great as Obadiah is giving the reveal. You've got that great kind of the jibs flying right up into their faces, and then after Obadiah leaves, it's the reverse of that as the camera just kind of drops away and minimizes Tony in the shot, which it's really nice. I do want to say, though, going back to what you were saying about the security, all of Obadiah's security. One, man, does he have a lot of security detail.
Yes.
And two, it's funny because we had that weird shot of Agent Coulson earlier in the bar as he's watching Tony talking to Pepper. And this is as Tony and Pepper go outside to get some air. It has this awkward cut of Agent Coulson standing there watching almost like a stalker as the two of them leave, and then we don't see him for a while. And the first time that I saw this, when right around it cuts to that two shot as Obadiah leans in and whispers in Tony's ear, you see a figure standing at the top of the stairs, and I was like, "Is that Agent Coulson? Is he still spying on Tony? What is going on with this guy?"
Wow!
And then you see as Obadiah leaves that it's actually one of Obadiah's security guys. He comes running.
Oh yeah, you can see him put his. Yeah, there he is. He's the one who crosses right in front.
Yeah,
I totally bought that.
I totally thought that was Coulson again.
They should have done that. It makes me look at everyone out there. Where is Coulson?
Right. Is he still stalking and watching?
Maybe he's the one up on the right. No, that might be Happy. Wow.
No, that's who I was looking at, the one on the right. because he comes running down too as soon as
I was looking at the
leaves.
one on the left in front of the sign.
Yeah, he also follows.
They do, right? That's the one I was looking at.
Yeah, he puts his hand to his ear, and then you see that both of those guys
come down,
passing by. Yeah, so I don't know. Very strange.
Anyway, so this is where the worm turns, and as we back up, then we transition to Tony back in his place playing with his toys.
And it's a great transition on the camera move too.
Oh, great on the camera move. That same pace pull back off of our subject. Now we're on TV, and I love that the camera pulls back right over his head.
Yeah, right over his head, revealing him playing with the glove.
Yeah,
watching the news. FBX News, we see the newscaster talking about the devastation in Gulmira. This is Nazanin Boniadi as Amira Ahmed, as the reporter here, and she's doing her bit here, talking about the devastation in the area and making Tony pretty pissed.
yeah, that's, you could say that.
Yes, Amira Ahmed, Pete. Does she ring a bell at all as anyone that you might have seen in anything?
No.
Nazanin Boniadi is the actress's name.
Now I'm feeling like you're about to punk me.
I'm not, but I bring it up. As far as the IMDb game, Iron Man is not actually one of hers, but Counterpart, the TV show, Hotel Mumbai, and I'm going to come back to that, Homeland, and How I Met Your Mother. Those are her credits on IMDb. But Hotel Mumbai, I actually just saw a poster for that in the movie theater.
Yeah.
So, and she's one of the credited faces up at the top of it. So
I think I've heard nothing but exceptional things about Counterpart, and I didn't watch anything past season 1 on Homeland, so I didn't see her. But I haven't watched Counterpart, and I saw the poster for Hotel Mumbai as coming soon.
Yeah.
And I don't remember her as Nora in How I Met Your Mother, but I really feel like I should, because she was on there for a long time.
10 episodes.
Over the course of 3 years.
Yeah, she comes back. Right.
You're right.
Right.
Anyhow.
But she is delivering a bit of news. And this kind of continues that whole hero's call, because here he is fuming and getting upset and seeing the devastation and hearing about all this awful stuff. We have references to Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness.
Mm-hmm.
All of this stuff, all these people are having to walk. And I think it actually makes for a kind of this nice sense. Now, although I will say, oddly, the news, it says Gulmira province at the bottom of the little FBX text at the bottom of the screen. I don't know. Maybe it's Gulmira. There's a Gulmira village and a province.
Gulmira village is in Gulmira province, New York.
Right. One of those sorts of things. I don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was just they just didn't type it that clearly.
Right.
Who knows?
Okay.
Or maybe it shouldn't be analyzed this closely.
You're right. We've gone too far now.
Right. Let's stop. Minute 74.
Hang it up.
Well, we do have in this news clip, we have a bunch of people walking. We have we see some shots of warlords. That was the main thing that I wanted to point out here is we have a couple shots of like just some like warlord type of figures. It looks almost like, stock B-roll of warlords. You've got a guy standing on the back of a truck with a gun. None of these guys are people we've seen before. It's very random, which will be interesting as we compare it with what we continue to see on the news tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting, but I am looking forward to talking a little bit more about that. But before we go, I have one last thing I want to talk to you about. And that is, we cut after that shot over his head, we cut to reverse, and now we're pushing in on him. We see Tony, he's fiddling with a really long screwdriver. He's kind of adjusting something in his arm unit. And on the table in front of him, Pete,
mm-hmm.
we've got the holder, like the 3-pronged arm piece holder.
Right.
But then kind of screen right of that, it's something that I can't figure out what it is. Is it like a laser gun on a stand? Do you see that little thing? It's like a prong. Yeah. I keep looking at that, and it's got like a blue ring. So it makes me think that it's somehow tied into his chest in some way. But I can't figure out what that piece is.
Okay, so remember when we talked about the cave? There is this fantastic shot that shows the exploded kind of arc reactor. He's looking through some sort of a magnifying lens, looking at part after part after part, kind of expanding out in front of him. This feels like almost a modernization of that. Like it's sitting on some sort of like that. The base looks like some sort of a battery, like light source maybe, and if you were to turn it a little bit, you'd see that part of it is a lens or that's like a magnifying device that allows us to look at the circular ring, maybe something to do with the arc reactor. It's about the right size. It feels like a tool specifically for that component that's very similar to something that I feel like we saw in the cave.
Yeah, maybe.
You don't buy it.
I think it's a ray gun. I think he's developing. I think he's also developing ray guns.
I think it would be late in the game to introduce ray guns.
It's just a touch. They're just saying, he's playing with lots of things.
Iron Man 2 is going to be fantastic, is what they're saying. That's what it is. It's the ray guns movie.
That's okay. Absolutely what it is.
All right, they've planted the seed.
I have no idea. It piques my curiosity because it's this funky little thing on a stand. It looks like a Men in Black tool is what it looks like.
That would be crossing the streams.
It is. It is crossing the streams. Although the new one has Thor in it. So
look, you're right. If the streams were crossed, I feel like, Andy, if you like, we can go ahead and say they're setting the table for something else in the future. But I kind of feel like we know where the future goes after this movie, and I don't remember seeing any other ray guns. You can start holding your breath now.
I just am waiting for Endgame. There's going to be a ray gun used in some way. He's going to come back to Earth
all the time,
and he's going to come back to the remnants of his house, and he's going to find this ray gun, and he's going to use it to save the day.
I can't wait for that. That's going to be the moment. I can't wait for that. We've come full circle.
I don't know why he has a ray gun on his table, but
it'll take us 20 years to close the loop on this conversation.
So good.
You heard it here first. Season 1, episode 74.
Now, as far as this conversation that Tony is having with Obadiah here, what I think is interesting is this goes to how things change so much over the course of the production. There's actually in the making of, they have shots of the scene between these characters as Robert Downey Jr. and Jeff Bridges are actually rehearsing it. And it's the way that it's scripted is how they're rehearsing it. And it's interesting because they have this whole Tony, don't be so naive and all of this. And then Obadiah says, Tony, you're a child. Tony says, you don't believe I can turn this company around, do you? Obadiah says, you've got about as much control over things as a child riding in the backseat of your father's car with a red plastic steering wheel in your hand. Tony says, maybe I'll just get out of the car. Obadiah, you're not even allowed in the car. And that's then when he reveals, I'm the one who's filing the injunction against you. It's kind of a strange little moment that they had, and they rehearsed this. You can see them rehearsing that whole conversation. It's an interesting conversation, but I think that they streamlined it so much nicer in the script. And actually, I'm glad that they did, because it also has, as Obadiah leaves, Tony goes ballistic. The paparazzi snap pictures of him. That's when Obadiah says, it's the only way I can protect you. And then Tony yells after him. He's like, this is going to stop.
That was the one I was going to comment on, because I think that line in particular is so dumb.
The whole thing, it's really written. And I can see them rehearsing it and then feeling it out and then saying, okay, what's the subtext here? What do we really need to get across? Yeah. And then finding the right way to deliver it. I think that Favreau is really good about working with his actors to do that. And clearly they found a much better way to get this scene across.
I totally and absolutely concur.
All right. Well, I don't think I have anything else for this minute. You feeling pretty good?
Thank God. No, I'm ready.
All right, everybody. Well, that is it for today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the show for free at MarvelMovieMinute.com. Join us over in our Discord chat room and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Next Reel. And if you like what we do and you want to support us and get some cool stuff, become a patron over at thenextreel.com/Patreon. Until next time, true believers.